Let me know when you're ready and we'll just start. It seems like everybody's here. Do you want to give it more time for the public to call in? Or
Yes,
are you good with
yeah,
that?
we'll wait till right at 7 o'clock.
Right.
But we are live.
Right. About 30 more seconds.
Okay. There's one caller from the public. I will let them in at this point.
Okay. And then you close right at 7 for public, correct?
Yes. Well, the public can call in, but no more video participants after
Right.
7 o'clock.
All right, it's now 7 o'clock. I call this meeting to order. Could we all stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. Roll call, please.
Upper,
Here.
Ingram,
Here.
Moretto,
Here.
Duff,
Here.
Laybourne,
Here.
Minoletti,
Here. Correspondence, I don't have anything. So we'll go to the approval of the ZBA minutes from June 18th. I reviewed them. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, or comments? If not, I'll hear a motion to approve.
Here. Minoletti,
Here. Correspondence, I don't have
Sounds
anything.
like there's a echo
So,
or delayed recording or something coming through.
yeah, I'm hearing that too.
All right, that's been taken care of.
Okay.
Apologize for
good.
that.
Great.
Yep.
Great.
Okay.
If there's no
Any,
questions, I'll move to approve the minutes as stated.
I'm sorry, who was that?
That's Kathy.
Oh, Kathy, thank you. I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the presentation of cases. ZBA case 20-696, James Wolf, location of the property, 642 Laguna, Wolverine Lake, Michigan, 48390. Basis for the appeal, 1250.07, footnote, subsection 7, building bulk limitations. Village ordinance limits the size of the accessory structure to 750 square feet. Applicant proposes an accessory garage that is 1,040 square feet. To all applicants, what we'd like you to do is please state your name, state your address, tell us what you want to do, and please tell us the hardship of why you need to do this. If you have any questions about that, please let us know. So, Mr. Wolf, you can feel free to go ahead. No, I'm sorry, 1 second, please. I'm sorry, sir. Can I have a motion to open up ZBA case 20-696?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Wolf, go ahead, please, sir.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
We can, yes.
All right. I'm looking to
Name and address, please, first, sir.
name and address. James J. Wolf II, address 642 Laguna Drive, Wolverine Lake, Michigan, 48390.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
No, go ahead, Mr. Wolf.
All right. I'd like to build a outbuilding to put my my belongings in for security, and the room of 750 square feet does not fit all of my stuff in there.
Okay.
I don't want to leave things parked out in the yard for blight reasons, for security reasons. I just need 1,000 square feet.
Is there anything else you want to add, or you think that's pretty good?
I think that's probably pretty good. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Well, I'm sure we'll have questions. So,
All right.
okay. So at this time, I'd like to open it up to the public. I don't know if there's anybody on the phone about this.
We have one caller.
Is it about this case?
If it's about this case, they can press *9 and raise their hand, and I will unmute them if they want to address this particular case.
On the counter.
I don't see anybody raising their hand at this point.
Okay. I have a couple of letters that I need to read into the to the record that we received. One was written on July 14th, received by the village on July 16th. It says, we wish to formally protest against the appeal to increase the size of the proposed outbuilding located at 642 Laguna. An outbuilding of that size, basically the size of our house, has no place in our residential area. This proposed large structure will run along the back fence line of our residential property, which in addition to their existing large shed in the opposite corner will give us the feeling of being boxed in. However, our primary concern is twofold. Why is the structure this size needed in a residential area? And is the building to be used as a working mechanic's garage or workshop, creating additional noise during the day and night? Will it be used as a socializing structure, bringing in a large number of people for events during the evening and weekends, or as storage for construction equipment and large recreational vehicles, which could and should be stored off-site? Our village is a residential area and should maintain the integrity of being so by not allowing a building in excess of 750 square feet to be in someone's backyard. If this is being requested strictly for storage, the current garage and large shed, along with the allowed zoning limits for another additional structure, should be sufficient. And that is from Perry and Mark Lindemuth at 675 Los Arbos. I have one more written on, does not have a date, I apologize. It was received at the village on July 15th. Please be advised, we live at 670 Laguna and have resided here for 50 years, moving in July of 1970. We do not have any objection to James Wolf building an accessory garage size of 1,040 square feet. James Wolf is a good neighbor and takes care of his property. Therefore, we see no reason that he should not be allowed to build the accessory garage. It will be built in the back corner of his lot and will not interfere with anything. That is from Alan and Carol Belcher.
Those are my neighbors.
And I don't have anybody else that has written in, so those are the ones we have. So at this time, we can open this up to the board. We are now closed to the public, and we can then now ask questions of Mr. Wolf, and we can discuss amongst ourselves. So anybody have a question, feel free to fire away.
Well, I have a question that was kind of raised by one of the people that submitted a letter as well. What is the thing that is driving the actual size that you're requesting for the garage? Is there a particular vehicle or something that you're looking to fit into a certain space?
Yeah, kids' motorcycles, a camper, things that just don't fit in the garage with 2 vehicles, a 3rd recreational vehicle, and I don't want to leave that stuff outside and have my yard looking all messy. I just want to be organized and clean and secure. And keep those things inside out of the weather, then they last a while and take care of the stuff. That's all.
Was there an option to extend the existing garage that you currently have or
No.
enlarge that?
Now, Mr. Wolf,
Yes, sir.
correct me if I'm wrong, you have a 2-car garage and then a single-car garage in the front, correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And then what currently is in those 3 spaces right now?
my vehicle, my wife's vehicle, a recreational vehicle. Also, the kids' bicycles, some kayaks, a couple other things in there, trash cans.
Thinking, because I didn't see that, so that's good. That's great. What is in the shed? Yard
Lawn
equipment, I would
equipment.
assume.
Yeah, lawn equipment.
So basically, this is for an additional recreational vehicle and additional things for the kids. Is that correct?
Yes, family products. We have a pole behind camper that I'd like to park in there. We're looking at the option of getting a boat for the lake. I'd like to park that in there. And then if I have anything else, I know that I got the kids a couple of motorcycles for when we go up north. So I can park those in there and not to leave them outside in the weather, and then have plenty of room to move around in the garage that I currently have.
How big is your current camper now? Do you know the length?
24 and a half feet, which is why I wanted to go to the 26 so I could fit it all the way in there.
Okay.
And
And then you were going to do a boat. How wide is the camper, sir?
About 12 feet.
And you were thinking about doing a boat?
We're talking about it, yes.
Any idea the size of a boat or no? Not at this time.
No, not yet. We're still discussing it.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I just was curious, are you planning to do a double, what are you looking at for entry into the garage? Is it off-
One steel man door and 2 overhead doors. One on the east side, one on the south side. I'm sorry, that would be one
No,
on
that
the
would,
west
yeah, I was
side.
going to say that's the back of your property. That's going into the
I
fence.
apologize. One on the west side, one on the south side.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Wolf? If not, we can go to our checklist. If everybody's ready. Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right, number 1, the special or unique conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not generally applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district.
Disagree.
Does anybody agree? Kyle? Kyle?
Sorry, disagree.
I also disagree. So we have, at this point, 6 on disagree. Does anybody agree?
No.
Okay. A literal interpretation of the provision of the zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the same zoning terms, and the variance is the minimum necessary. Do we have anybody that agrees with that?
Disagree.
Can I mark 6 disagree there? Or does anybody agree?
I disagree.
Disagree.
Thank you. And number 3, agree or disagree, the special condition and circumstance do not result from the actions of the applicant. They are not self-created. Does anybody agree with that statement?
No.
Disagree.
Okay, so can I put six across the board there? Disagree?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Agree or disagree? Number 4, the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this ordinance. Does anybody agree? with
Disagree.
that?
Disagree.
Disagree.
Number 5, the variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the general welfare. Well, I agree with that. I agree with that. I don't think it's.
I agree with that.
I don't think we're hurting the neighborhood by any means, but So,
Until you have somebody else who does it, and then they have a mechanic shop open up.
well, that would be a whole nother case that we would have to talk about. But in this instance, if this is approved, there could obviously be circumstances applied to this that would state that a mechanic shop would not be allowed. Because I believe you cannot run a business like that within this village. So, Mark, you disagree, which is fine. Who else disagrees? Okay, who else agrees? Everybody else?
I agree.
Agree.
Agreed.
So I'm gonna go 5 agree and then 1 disagree for Mark, which is fine. I'm sorry. Who was that? Did somebody say something or no? No? Okay. Sorry, I'm being attacked by ants here. Apologize. Agree or disagree, the spirit of this ordinance shall be observed, public safety secured, and substantial justice done. I agree with that. Does anybody else agree with that?
I disagree with that. I don't think it does hold up the spirit of the ordinance, which is to limit the size of the
Disagree.
building.
Yeah, disagree as well.
Disagree.
I disagree.
Okay, so what we have for review, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 are unanimously disagree. Number 5, we all agree except for Mark. Number 6, we all disagree except for myself. This,
I make a motion that we approve the ordinance. Where's the number? Case number 20-696, based off of number 5.
that's really all we have. Yeah, that's really all we have.
What is that?
Okay, so we have a motion. I'll second that motion. Do we have any discussion on that motion? If no, then I'll take a roll call on that motion.
No,
Ingram,
No.
Moretto,
No.
Duff,
No.
Laybourne,
no.
Minneletti.
No. Okay, Mr. Wolf, this did not pass. Feel free to contact the village and talk with Tim and see if there's some other things that can be figured out to put this within our ordinance. We thank you for your time, sir. Okay, let's move on to the next case. ZBA case -20-697, David Ditto. 626 Wolverine Drive, Wolverine Lake, Michigan. Basis for the appeal, repair and alteration to non-conforming buildings. Repairs, additions, and enlargements to non-conforming structures must conform to all zoning requirements for that district. Applicant proposes an addition to an existing non-conforming lake house. Can I have a motion to open up ZBA case 20-697?
So moved.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Ditto, if you can state your name and your address, tell us what you'd like to do, and then the hardship that is concerning for you in regards to this addition, that would be great. Take your time. Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay. Good evening, David Ditto at 626 Wolverine Drive. I am here tonight to request a side lot variance to construct a garage addition to connect my existing 2-car garage to my home. The current side lot setbacks on my house and garage, I'm looking to remain on that same plane. I don't want to encroach any further on my neighbor's property line. My reason for hardship is the garage is undersized compared to current standards, and I'm unable to fit my vehicles inside.
Mr. Ditto, can I put you on hold for 1 sec, sir?
Yep.
I'm hearing a ton of background noise. Does somebody have a TV on or
Yeah, I
something?
think too. Oh,
think it's echo, Craig.
I'm sorry?
It's exactly what he's saying, only about a 3-second delay.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm on my phone. I'm not sure if that.
No, I don't think it's you, sir. I think it's something to do maybe with our hookup.
Yeah,
Um,
it could be somebody's got the speaker on. Sometimes that that causes an echo. If you have earbuds, that generally helps. That sounds better.
I just turned my speaker down. Maybe it was me. It usually is. I'm usually the problem. So, Mr. Diddle, feel free to go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. So I'm requesting the variance to attach my garage, to bring it up to current standards, to allow me to fit my vehicles, mine and my wife's vehicles in the garage, along with an extra vehicle, motorcycle, and the ability to be able to store my boat inside possibly versus having to store it outside in my yard to kind of clean up, the area so my neighbors don't have to look at my boat all winter. And I also want to do this to improve the front elevation of my home to, just make it fit in, look a little bit nicer for everybody around. And that's basically where I'm at, I guess.
Okay.
I think I'm off looking for 1.2 foot. I think the current side lot setback on lakefront property is 5 feet. I'm at 3.8 feet, so I'm 1.2 feet away from being where I'm supposed to be. And again, my house and garage are already at that, that property line or that, that setback there. So I'm not looking to go any further over than I already sit with my garage and home currently. That
Okay.
makes sense.
Yes, no, I think it makes perfect sense. At this point, we'll open that to the public. I'm sorry, I got a plane buzzing over my head here. Is there anybody on the phone that wants to talk about this?
If there is, press *9 to raise your hand. No one has raised their hand for this
Okay.
case.
All right, so at this point, we're going to close it to the public and we'll open it up to the board for discussion. So basically, you're not going any wider in your house. You're basically just connecting your garage to your house, correct?
Correct.
And you already have a non-conforming structure. Can't really change that. Can't tear the house down and rebuild it because obviously that's not cost effective. So, okay. Does anybody have any questions on this?
oh, I make a motion that we open case 20-697.
We already did that.
Oh, sorry, confused on. Sorry.
Okay. You confused me there for a second. I thought maybe I'd forgotten something. No, we're in the stage of asking Mr. Ditto any questions. If not, I can go to our checklist.
Craig, just a second. Mr. Ditto, I just want to make sure your changes proposed are within the existing footprint of your house and garage, right? You are simply connecting the two. You're not extending beyond. Is that right?
Correct.
That's what he said.
Nope. So my house is actually 2 feet wider than my existing garage. So there will be a slight, jog where the new garage would meet the existing garage. It'd be a 2 foot little offset, but I'm not looking to go wider. I'm going to stay the same width as my house and carry that over to meet the garage. So, but that'll be 2 foot wider than the existing garage.
Existing garage. Okay.
And that 2 foot offset will be on my side where I'm not looking for a side lot variance.
And your intent's not to tear down the existing garage, but to
connect the two. No, not to
connect
tear it
it
down.
with an addition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Just to fill in the gap between the two.
Anybody else?
Hey, Craig,
Yes, sir.
you had correspondence.
Yeah, I've got it.
With
I'm
the
reading.
case.
I'm looking at it right now. I have one. Do you have more than one?
Okay.
I have one.
I've got one from 648
That's the only one I
Wolverine
have.
Drive.
Yeah, that's all I have. I was gonna go back to that. Yeah, I just saw that in the package.
Okay.
Was there more than, do you have more than one or just that, there's that it?
I think that was the one.
Okay. All right, if nobody has, does anybody else have any other questions for the applicant?
And we want to talk about adding to the non-conforming. I got two, Craig.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
612
Tim.
Wolverine Drive.
I believe
612.
there was three
Wolverine
letters
Drive,
from some of my neighbors, three different neighbors that. wrote
634.
letters.
Part of the packet has two
All
letters.
my packet has is one. So,
Okay.
if we can, what are the other addresses?
612 Wolverine Drive
I have 648.
and 634 Wolverine Drive.
And were those,
634 and
and were those, there are those,
634 in support,
okay.
and
What about
612 in support.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you. Okay.
634, sorry to interrupt. 634 is the one that is where I'm going to be encroaching towards his property a little bit.
Yeah, he's to your, he's to
He
your
was on board with
north,
that.
basically. Okay, so I want to read this in real quick. To the Village of Wolverine, subject garage improvement for Mr. and Mrs. David Ditto, 621 Wolverine Drive. Please be advised I'm in favor of the planned garage improvements requested by Mr. and Mrs. David Ditto, 626 Wolverine Drive. Property improvements are an asset to the neighborhood homeowners, the neighborhood as a whole, and the Village of Wolverine Lake. You may contact me for any further discussions. Sincerely, Deborah Silock, 648 Wolverine Drive. I apologize. I do not have the letters for 612 and 634, but I understand that they are in support per Tim Brandt. So we'd put that into the record, please. And if there is no other questions, I'd like to go to our checklist if we could. Everybody ready? Okay, number one, special or unique conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and which are not generally applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district.
I disagree with that.
Okay,
I
I'll
think
agree with that because there's a lot of non-conforming structures, especially on that street. He's an
I
existing
agree.
non-conforming, so I will agree
It
with
is
that.
existing non-conforming.
So who agrees?
I agree.
Besides my,
I agree.
okay, Aaron,
Agree,
Kathy,
Agree. I agree.
Bonnie.
agree.
Okay, so do we have 5 agree and then Mark disagrees? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Agree or disagree that the literal interpretation of the provision of the zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the same zoning terms and the variance of the minimum necessary. Again, I agree with that because it is a non-conforming structure. There's many non-conforming structures that have had additions put on, especially in that neighborhood. Does
Yep.
anybody disagree with that?
No.
Nope.
Okay, so we'll agree with that. Number 3, that the special condition and circumstance do not result from the actions of the applicant. They are not self-created. Well, in this instance, usually I disagree with this, but in this instance, I agree with this because he didn't build the house as non-conforming. That would be my 2 cents. How about if somebody else?
True, but again, it's not like it's being forced to actually do this. So it is kind of his own creation. He
Very
bought
true.
the house like it.
Very true.
I disagree for the same reason.
Okay, that's okay. Bonnie,
I'm going to agree.
okay. Aaron,
I'm disagreeing.
Kathy?
I disagree.
So we have a 4-2 margin of disagree on that one. Agree or disagree, the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this ordinance. Again, I will agree.
I
I
agree.
will agree with that. Anybody disagree with that? I will mark 6 agree.
Oh, but Leanne has a question.
Yes, Leanne?
You're muted.
Oh, there we go. I just wanted to remind you, you were doing good, that we should just do the reasoning more clearly. So you're doing good. So on this one that we still, although you all agree, what is a reason for that? Let's give some more factual or reasoning behind it for
All right.
each one.
I'll tell you what, why don't we finish this up and then we'll go back and then we'll put our factual data points to it. How's that sound? Is that okay?
Okay,
We only have 2 more questions, so.
right. I mean, you've done it so far, so good, but I just.
Okay.
this
So
one-
for 5 and 6, whatever we decide here, let's put some factual data points to it. Then we'll go back to questions 1 through 4. Number 5, agree or disagree, the variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to general welfare. I think we all agree there, correct?
I agree.
Yep. And he's going more towards his own structure than away from it.
Correct. So he's not blocking additional traffic
Yep.
patterns or anything like that. Not causing a sight line issue. Does everybody agree there?
Staying within the existing envelope.
Staying within the existing footprint of the non-conforming structure.
Yeah.
Number 6, the spirit of this ordinance shall be observed, public safety secured, and substantial justice done. I will agree with that. Does anybody disagree?
Agree.
I
Agree.
Agree.
Yeah, again, public safety, we're not causing a traffic issue, a sightline issue. Anything else that anyone could input? All right, I'm gonna go back to number 1. Well, 5 agreed and 1 disagreed, and that was the special or unique conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not generally applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. So we all agreed. My thought would be because it's already a non-conforming structure. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
I think that covers it.
Yeah, that's the same reason I agree.
Thank you. Number 2, the literal interpretation of provision of the zoning ordinance would be deprive the applicant of the rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the same zoning terms, and that the variance is minimum necessary. Again, we all agreed with that. I would say because other properties have had things done to them that are already non-conforming, especially on that street, so it fits in with the neighborhood. Does anybody have anything else to add?
And most have attached garages.
Yes. So we'll put attached garages and then similar in neighborhood or similarity to the neighborhood.
Yep.
Does that work
Yes.
for everybody?
Yes.
Mhm.
You, 1 second. Number 3, agree or disagree, the special conditions and circumstances do not result in the actions the applicant, they are not self-created. In this instance, we had 2 agree and 4 disagree. Since the disagree carried, what are your thoughts there on the 4 people that disagreed?
I'd say for me, because if the only reason this is an issue is because he wants to do something, nobody's forcing him to make a change on the property, so that's why I disagreed.
So basically applicant's own doing.
Yeah.
Summed it up.
And then number 4, the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this ordinance. We all agreed there. Again, it's already a non-conforming structure. Other non-conforming structures have had additions put onto it, especially in that neighborhood. Does anybody else have anything to add?
Yep.
They're
Nope,
not
not
making it
adding
any more,
on.
they're not making it any more egregious, so.
Yep.
And also the,
Okay.
all the letters received were in support.
Kathy, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, I said that weren't all the letters from the neighbors in support of the.
Sure, we could put that in there. Absolutely. Neighborhood support. Okay, so we have our checklist done. At this point, I'll like to
Yep,
hear a
I'd like to
motion.
make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve ZBA case number 20-697 based off of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6.
No, don't use 3.
Sorry, 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, 6, yes.
Second.
We have a motion. Did somebody second?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Do you have any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll hear a roll call, please.
And it was Duff, and who was the second, please?
I'll second.
No, I think it was
It was Kyle.
Kyle.
I did.
Thank you for the clarification.
If I may interrupt you, just to make the motion so that the variance approved is in line with the plans that were submitted in the packet.
Sure.
Just to
That's fine.
specify so that, there's no question that the plans stand for what is being approved.
Got it. Ready for roll call?
Yes, please.
Tupper,
Yes.
Ingram,
Yes.
Moretto,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Leyburn,
Yes.
Minneletti.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Mr. Ditto, you're all set. Give the village a day or two to get your permits and stuff in order, and happy building.
Great. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank you for coming to the meeting. We apologize for the Zoom, but as you know, we're obviously in weird times, so
No, understood.
thanks again. Have a good day, sir.
Thanks. You too.
Okay, just want to move on to the next case. ZBA case. Sorry, did somebody have a question? ZBA case 20-698, Michael and Stacy Rafalco, 761 Laguna Drive, Wolverine Lake. Basis for the appeal, 1250.07, building bulk limitations. Building height exceeds 30 feet. And 1250.06, setback from property line requires a front yard average setback of 93.5 feet. And 74 feet is provided to construct a new home. I believe Mr. Rafalco is here. If he could state his name and address. I'm sorry, one more. I'd like to have a motion to open this case.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
So Mr. Rafalco, please state your name, your address, and what you'd like to do and why it can't be done within the limitations of the code.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time. My name is Michael Rafalco. My wife Stacy, 761 Laguna. I can describe both these at the same time, or I can do one at a time. I prefer because they are kind of. I'll start with the height.
Why don't we start with one and we'll work our way to the other.
So the hardship really is the water table in that area. Working with Mike Powell, your engineer, understanding the water table has been determined to be 919.5 as far as a flood zone is concerned. It's not declared by Oakland County because there isn't a declared flood zone because we do in fact have a dam, which is very helpful. So I'm working to that number. And with that number, we've got a couple things going on. Of course, avoiding the water table. And I also want to make sure I've got an appropriate grade to my neighbors so I'm not doing anything silly trying to and have inappropriate runoff to the adjacent properties. We're also trying to account for an elderly parent that is likely going to be moving in with us, my wife's father. So we are trying to integrate an elevator into this property, which requires a 16-inch safety pit for overstroke on the down coming of the elevator, which that really makes the need to avoid the water table even more of an issue. When we originally submitted our plan, I think we're at 34 to 35 feet. Working with Tim, who's been very helpful. He's given us some tips on things we can do with our roof, things we can do with the grade. We've been able to get that to just under the 32 feet that we're asking for. We're going with the hip roof that gives you a lot less siding on the side elevation, so it doesn't have an obtrusive tall stature. Also change some of the pitch of the roof to lower that overall height. If you look at the drawings, I think we've actually probably used the most stringent method of calculation for the average, because we did not include the garage, which will have, there's no living space arguably above the garage in the bonus space. So he didn't want us to use that as the averaging. So we're only using the average of the main structure of the home, which tends to skew the numbers a little bit higher, but it's still, I think, in the spirit. So I think we're happy we're able to reduce from that 35 down to the 32. And that's why we're at 32. We're not asking for any more, of course.
Okay.
I can continue on if you'd like relative to the setback, or we can discuss the.
No, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, the setback itself. So, actually, I wanted to start off. I needed to apologize, especially I think to you, Craig, because I think you made 2 trips to our place to look for stakes.
Oh, don't worry about it. I'm 5 minutes away. You don't need to apologize. Not a big deal. A lot of people forget about it. We're in crazy times. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal.
I think I assumed that the staking that was there was it, and that the garage face was what I was asking for in the setback. But you need to see this. You need to see the totality of it all. So I get it.
Yes. Thank you. We appreciate you doing that.
So the setback, you saw that we're not looking to encroach any further on the front side setback. The house is sitting currently at around 74 feet from the street. There's a house to our right, which is lot 49, which is significantly set back. The number is quite high. It's like 99 feet. And as you guys are aware, you get adjacent averages of 1 property per side, and then that becomes your average. So that one that's significantly deep has skewed our average, and in fact makes our current home non-conforming as it stands. But back to my point for wanting to get to that line, with the side entry 3-car garage, we're not looking for some ginormous 4-car extending out into the street garage, but in order to swing into that 3-car garage, we have to clear the front steps. And with a little bit of that elevation, there's going to be a few steps going up to the finished first floor. And to swing into the garage, we don't want to encroach the ability of providing steps into the home. So that pushes us beyond the setback of 94 feet, roughly 93 and a half. And our plan shows us coming to the existing home's garage face, which in the case of the current structure is a forward entrance garage. And our proposal is a side entrance garage, which would, like a courtyard, kind of swing into the garage. So that's why we're asking for that. The other reason, which I would call it a softer reason, if we're able to, we may in fact pull the house even out farther away from the lake. Depending on that final plan, we don't want to have any issues with encroaching that setback on the lakeside. We have no intention to ever ask you for that, but we may in fact come back away from it, pull away from it, and this would allow us to do that. I would call it a soft reason. I really don't know that we'll be doing that, but we're definitely not asking to violate the setback on the lakeside, nor would we.
Okay. Thank you. Would your wife want to add anything to that?
No, I think he's summarized it well.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I will close to the applicant, open to the public. Let's see, I know we still have a phone call. I'm assuming it's about this case.
All right, we have 3 residents raising their hand. First person I will unmute is 4403. The last 4 digits of the phone number 4403. I'm unmuting you.
Please state your name and your address, please.
Hello, thanks for having me be able to call in today. My name is Richard Shirley. My property is 753 Laguna, which is right next door to 761.
Okay. What would you like to say, sir?
So I had a couple questions on the information that was just discussed, and I know we talked about the average of the height of the house was 32 feet, I believe. My question would be, what is the highest point of the structure? I mean, that's the average, but what is the peak? And also, when we talk about building height exceeds 30 feet within our zoning rules, is that also an average? It doesn't state on this document I have. Is that an average, or is that the highest portion of the structure?
Tim, I think you're best to answer that.
It's an average. You want to establish a building height, and grades change front to back. So as a general rule, the village in the past has used an average height, sometimes a per foot height of the house, and then average the per foot height to do the maximum building height. And the building height is always measured to the midpoint of the roof.
Yeah, it looks like it's a
I'm not-
35.7. To the
Yeah,
midpoint.
Yeah, I don't know what the
and
tallest portion is.
the 35.7 is actually the height on the lakeside to the lakeside grade. If you're looking at the side elevation, the highest point is, I believe, 33 feet. I'd have a good look. I think it's right there. 33 feet from the side elevation. So that's why I said I think we've been extra stringent in the
Oh
calculation.
yeah, I see where you're going from. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely, yeah, you're right.
So
Yeah,
that would,
because you've got you're down to 921 in your elevation. And
Right.
you're 923 for your height. Okay.
correct.
So we're looking 33 to 34 feet. Somewhere in that general range.
And then you go quickly to 31, 30, and less.
Sure, and it drops from there, sure. Does that answer your question, sir?
It does. I mean, I live next door. I still have a concern about it. That house is on the west side of me, and I think with the sun setting that way and making shadow, my house is a single-story house. So I still have a concern about the height. The average is 2 feet over. To me, that means, the larger portion, the highest peak is much higher than if the average was at 30 feet. So I'm concerned about the height of the house. I'd like to see if there's a way to still do the things you want to do, but keep it within the zoning specifications we have right now.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I thought you said you had 2 questions.
Well, yeah, so my other one is on the setback. I wanted to make sure, first, we were talking about the document I have talks about the front yard average setback. Sometimes on lakefront properties, they call the front yard the lakeside, right? So
Not in this case.
Not in this case,
Yeah,
okay.
his setback for the rear property, he is within.
Okay, all right. So basically, I would say that from being there and seeing all the houses are really pretty much in line, and so where you plan to build towards the lakeside now, or where the house will end, is not going any further towards the lake than where the current house is. Is that correct?
No, that is incorrect. He is, it looks like it's going to be farther out, but he is still within his setback. That is not something we're hearing tonight because he's within the regulations that we have.
Okay, is there still a way to see that though, or that doesn't need to be discussed because it's within the regulations? Or
It's within
I
the
guess-
regulations. There's nothing really to discuss. He's allowed to do that. I can't discuss something that he's allowed to do.
Well, then can I ask a question? How much closer to the lake is it than what it is now?
Sir, why don't you go ahead and answer that question? Because I don't have those exact measurements. I think it looks like maybe 8 feet, 9 feet.
I'd have to double check. I think it's more than that.
No, actually, no, it's about 10. It might be from the very back part, maybe 15, 16 feet.
Yeah, so I think what happens is, and you guys are well aware of this, porches, and again, it's even more stringent on the lakeside because you use the 2 adjacent properties on each side.
Correct.
With that, that measurement is taken to anything that's 18 inches or higher. So this, if you take the porch that's 2 properties over, that's significantly high porch and very far forward towards the lake. And I think, Richard, are you buying Chris and Denny's home? Are you the new prospective owner? So you're the.
I am.
Okay, yeah, nice to meet you. So you're right next door in lot 47, your deck.
Guys, why don't we do this? We really can't allow participants to speak to each other.
Okay.
So if I have a question, I'll go to one of you, but this is a conversation that I would appreciate you could have, but definitely something to have, outside of this scope of this meeting. It's just not something that we're allowed to do. I apologize for that.
No, I completely get it.
Sir, is there any other questions that you have?
No, I would just say that the setback's there for a reason. It's to protect really all of us in our village and the atmosphere. And there's reasons we have the setbacks that we do. And this in 2 different situations is going beyond the setback. So, I don't support it. I guess I'm against it. I don't like it. I'm in a smaller house next door. So I think it's going to adversely affect me and my property and my views and the atmosphere of my property.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. We appreciate your input. Why don't we move on to the next caller?
All right, caller with the last 4 digits, 0553. 0553, I'm going to unmute you. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, this is Robin. Yeah, hi, this is Robin Friedman. I'm at 777 Laguna. I guess I need a clarification before I make a comment, and I'm still not sure what's meant by the setback that's being requested.
The garage side, the road side.
I hear you, but I called the village office to clarify what the notice was about, and they told me it was the lakeside that was being requested. So that is part of the confusion, okay? So if that's not correct, I'm glad to hear it.
That's not correct.
Can you tell me what the setback is from the lake to property?
Tim?
Yeah.
The setback to the new home is going to be 98 feet.
Okay, I guess I'm wondering what the village's requirement is.
The village requirement's 35.
Yeah, it actually sits farther back than your house.
So it's three times, the average is about 3 times more stringent than the village minimum.
Okay, so that was the concern. That was the reason I was calling in. Granted, the height is, a lot, but the reason for my call was about the setback from the lake. So if it's not going to encroach on what the setback is for the rest of us, if the line is still going to be maintained, then that's fine. Is that what I heard? I wasn't real clear about what was being said.
Yes, the house is not going to encroach on the lakeside setback.
Okay, so the line of houses that we currently have will be maintained, correct?
That is incorrect. No, actually, that's incorrect. Their house will sit slightly farther out than the residence next door, not including the deck. If you include the deck, it's going to be in line. But the setback to where it's drawn on this map and how it's been given to us by our building inspector, he is within that rear setback. So that's not something we're hearing on this case. It's not an issue for us as a ZBA board.
Okay, so the rest of us were somehow set back farther than we needed to be. He's set back still within the village requirements, even though it's further forward. Is that right?
That's
That
correct.
is correct.
Okay, then there's nothing we can object to it, is what you're saying.
You can object to it, but I'm just saying he fits within the line. I mean, objecting is part of what you'd like to do. That's fine. But unfortunately, I can't change that because he's not asking for that because he fits within his legal limitations of what he can and can't do.
Okay.
What he's not fitting in is the garage side where he's asking to go farther out towards the road.
Okay,
With the
no
garage.
problem. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Do you have an issue
That's
with him going farther out to the roadside?
I do not.
Okay. Very good. I'm glad we answered your
Okay.
questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we'll take the last caller, please.
Phone number 2714, I'm going to unmute you. 2714, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Daniel Godfrey, and I live at 769 Laguna in Wolverine Lake. Welcome to the neighborhood to Michael and Stacy Rafalco. The only concern I have is the fact that they're going from the existing structure to where they put the stakes in is approximately 20 feet. And that puts the line on the lake. If you consider the curvature of the lake there, that all the houses that are there, within about half a dozen houses, we all have pretty much the same curvature and the same setback from the lake. I understand that the village has a shorter leeway or greater leeway towards the lake than all of us, but some consideration might be on their part if they were to maybe take it back not so far and maybe go a little closer to the road. I have no objection to the height, and the only concern I have is the lakeside.
But you do understand that they are within their legal right based on where their setback line is, correct, sir?
Yes, but it would be nice if it didn't stick out as much.
Okay. And I think that is something that they potentially mentioned as
Yeah, I
something
believe they did.
potentially that could be done, but obviously that being done could necessarily change what they're doing on the street side. Okay, thank you. We appreciate. Was there any other questions that you have for us, sir?
No, I don't.
Well, we appreciate you calling
Thank you
in.
very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Okay.
Is there anybody else in the queue?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you. We'll close to the public, open to the board. My question is, are you planning on moving this house? I mean, you had mentioned that. Are you planning on pushing this closer to the road?
As far as the garage side, for sure, yes. I mean, that's why we're asking for this particular variance. What we may discover is that there could be a potential to actually not go as close to the setback line on the lakeside. I mean, I think Mr. Godfrey kind of mentioned that, and him and I have spoken. Currently, our plan shows us going to the setback line on the lakeside.
Yes.
And that is the design. And it also shows the garage going to the existing face of the current design, which is what we're asking for.
Right. But one of the things that we have to do is we have to make a decision based on plans you're submitting today. It's
Yes.
not a floating scenario to where we're not going to give you the leeway of putting this where you want to put it. We can only make a decision based on the information you're providing us tonight. So that's kind of what we're trying to get at is if you're going to want to change this, potentially you're going to have to come back in front of us because that's a completely different variance. The variance that we do tonight is going to be for what you're asking for. There isn't a large scope of what you can and can't do in regards to distance. Does that make sense to you?
It does, and this is our plan. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not saying if you change it, it wouldn't be approved. I'm just saying, understand, we can only approve what's been given to us.
Yeah. But so maybe I need to ask a question, if I may.
Sure, sir.
So and I know this is an if, I don't want to be presumptuous, I just want to lay it out. If you
Sure.
were to grant the setback of the garage to 74 feet, to the existing face of the existing garage, and then we've got 6 months in order to go in for our building permit. Are you saying that if for some reason on the lakeside, I don't come as close, that I have to come back in front of you because
No, because the lakeside's not really what we're discussing tonight.
Correct.
So you can do what you want on that side. You can make your house 10 feet shorter. It's not going to affect us. I'm saying for the things you are asking for, which is your height and which is your position towards the street, those are the things that we're going to rule on tonight.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. So let's say you shrink the house slightly, you didn't want to go as big and you push the house back towards, just make it smaller, but you're not changing your street side setback. Well, then no, you don't have to come back in front of us at all. We're going to approve or disapprove based on this information, and we tie it to this. If you want to go smaller, well, that's never going to affect you.
Right.
That's going to be in the benefit of the village. If you want to go larger, or if you want to position it a different way, well, then that's something that the village has to understand and discuss.
Let's put it this way. I would never come back in front of you and say, hey, can we take that 74 feet and now please can we make it 70? No, I won't do that.
Okay. And again, I just wanted to make that clear because you had said something about moving the house and, you know, you don't do this every day for a living. So I just didn't want you to think this can just move certain positions because that's not the case.
Right. No. I know that this is it. I completely understand that. What I meant by moving it was if we found the opportunity to shrink the home to accommodate, bring in a little bit further away from the lake, certainly consider it, but we would never come back and say, may we adjust that garage now even closer to the road? That would not, it would never.
Smaller is better than bigger. So we can do that.
Correct.
Smaller doesn't bother us. Bigger, that tends to be an issue. Okay. And as you saw, your neighbor was slightly concerned about, you know, his site. Again, I'm a believer that your view is your lot line to lot line. Some people differ from that, but obviously you're moving into a new neighborhood. You know, if there could be some consideration for that, it might be something that might benefit you down the road. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I mean, you have to build the house that you want to build within the configuration that the village will allow you to build it. So just so I understand, so you're basically, that orange paint that you had on the driveway, that's about where the new house is going, correct? The new garage?
Yes, they put any point that they could that would not be within the existing structure because you wouldn't be able to see it.
Okay.
So you would have saw a paint line on a corner.
Yep.
I'll call it the forwardmost, rightmost corner relative to the front of the house.
Yep.
And then another one on to the left that was almost kind of in front of the existing garage, right?
Okay. So based on where the existing garage is right now, are you going any closer to the road?
Not at all.
Okay.
No.
Are you going farther back? It looks like about the same.
It's about the same, and then it's actually a titch further back depending on the front elevation of the garage. You see a little jog?
Yep.
A little jog actually goes back, but we have to measure to the most encroaching point, which is 73.9. That's the 74 feet, which is the face of the existing garage. Yeah.
So it's already a non-conforming structure on the garage.
Correct.
Now, is your elevation correct? Because it doesn't look like it is.
Which elevation?
I'm looking, I don't know if you can see it. I'm looking at this one. That doesn't look like your house.
The front elevation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it. It doesn't, the garage portion, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't look like, based on this picture, it sticks as far out as what your garage actually does.
Well, the reason is you're seeing a two-dimensional view, so you're only seeing the face of the drawing. You can't see, it's not an isometric where you get that perspective.
Okay.
It's a front elevation, so that garage face, it just comes in and out of the picture. You can't really tell that it's that.
And I mean, it's a beautiful house. I mean, I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, and that was part of the discussion I had with Tim was, you know, technically we may be able to use measurements on the corner of that garage, but not the whole length of it. And that would actually bring the averages down, frankly, below the 30 feet. But like I said, we're trying to make sure that the interpretation is accurate and that we're using the most conservative calculation, which is why we're asking for the 32.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I do quickly. In terms of the height and not being able to get down to, I think it's that 30-foot average, is the main reason due to the elevator and the extra space that you need in that area for the elevator?
Yeah, I would say that's one of them, because when you add 16 inches, that's pretty significant right away. And also, with modern architecture and some of these spans, some of these joists and beams are a little bit taller, so that's a couple more inches. So
I think you said the elevator is an additional 16 inches. Is that correct?
Well, what it is, it's 16 inches that is actually subsurface of your basement finished floor.
Right.
As Michigan code says, you have 16 feet of overstroke for safety.
Okay.
And that, when you're already, I'll say, concerned about their water table, and then you've got this thing that wants to potentially protrude another 16 inches that below, that starts setting it off.
Are you doing a basement in this house?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a walkout or is it a standard basement?
It's a walkout. That's why you say that. That's why you see that 35 point whatever feet, because it's from the true ground of the walkout. but that number is actually less with that from a side elevation because that earth will wrap around and then drop down. Or retaining wall that just graduates with the natural topography of the ground.
Any other questions? No? All right, let's go through our checklist. Number one, the special or unique conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and which are not generally applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district.
Disagree.
I disagree.
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 Why?
There isn't really.
There's no special or unique circumstances here. They're building a brand new home.
The existing garage already being non-conforming, is that a potential condition?
They're gonna knock it down.
Correct.
So no.
No, okay, and that's fine. I will agree with that one because I do believe the garage is already non-conforming and he's not going any closer to the road. And that's really what he's asking for. Number two, a literal interpretation of the provision of the zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of the rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the same zoning terms and the variance is the minimum necessary.
Disagree.
Again, I agree with that because it's already a non-conforming structure.
I agree.
I'm gonna agree with it too.
Bonnie,
Yeah, I agree.
Kathy,
I agree.
Aaron, you said yes?
I agree.
All right, so we have 5 agree and 1 disagree. Number 3, agree. And then we agree with that because
There's plenty of homes in the village that are closer than that average distance to the road.
okay. So existing neighborhood and then
It's already non-conforming.
and is everybody all right if I write non-conforming?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like somebody needs to feed the dog.
And at some point, I think there has to be a sort of a utilization of property consideration. I mean, you have this huge yard and granted, maybe the previous houses were small, but you have to have some leeway to build a contemporary size home.
I agree. It's definitely a huge lot. Agree or disagree, the special condition and circumstance do not result from the actions of the applicant. They are not self-created. Well, I think we can agree that they've created the problem. I mean, it's really obvious. They're wanting to build a new house, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Number 4, the granting of the variance will be in harmony with general purpose and intent of this ordinance. I'll agree with that. Does anybody
Agree.
disagree?
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. And then we're going to use the existing neighborhood and other houses that have already been built, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, the variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the general welfare. I agree. Does anybody disagree?
I disagree. A neighbor's complaint.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll disagree for the same reason.
Sorry, who was that? Aaron? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Let me ask you a question. Are we considering the 2 variances separately or together?
You have to consider them separately. Isn't that right, Leanne?
Correct, yes. Yes. Now, if we can go through and if you have the same reasoning for both, then we can, just to save time in this case, you can say for the same reasons. But if there are different reasons, if you think the height, you have different reasoning for the height versus the setback, then yes, you need, I'm sorry, I should have caught you
No, that's all right. It's,
Started with that.
sorry,
to
I
do-
should have done it. It's just a weird meeting, that's all. So this one we're using as the setback. If I say setback, does anyone change their mind based on what they've said through these questions?
For the garage setback, no.
Mark, do you have a different opinion on anything or no?
No?
Okay. Aaron,
Well,
Kathy?
I would change my first one then if we're just looking at the setback from the road. Because I said I disagree with it. I would agree that it was special because it has a non-conformance for that particular thing.
Okay. So I'm gonna mark that 2 to 4. Anybody else want to change anything? The second one, we had 5 to 1. I think Mark was the one that disagreed. 3, we had all disagree. 4, we had all agree. 5, we had 4 agree and 2 disagree, which was Mark and Aaron. All right, number 6, do agree or disagree, the spirit of this ordinance shall be observed, public safety secured, and substantial justice done. I'll agree there. Anybody disagree?
Agree.
Agree.
And we use existing neighborhood. All right, Leanne, do you want us to do a motion on this and then go to the next one?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve.
Hold on, Mark, hold on. Because some people haven't had 2 different things. So all we're doing right
Okay.
now is the motion on the front yard average setback. We are not considering the 30-foot limit as of right now. Does everybody understand that?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Mark, go ahead.
Yep, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ZBA case 20-698, specifically 1250-06A, setback from property lines. And
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yes. We have a motion. I'll second the motion. Do you have any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll take a roll call on this.
All right, took me a minute.
Take your
Tupper,
time.
Yes.
Ingram,
Yes.
Moretto,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Laybourne.
I'm sorry, Mark, what was yours?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Laybourne
Yes.
and Minneletti.
Yes. Okay, so the first motion passes, which talks about the garage on the street side. Now, let's discuss the height limitations, that he's a few feet above the 30. Number 1, special or unique conditions and lands sorry, I can't even talk today. The special or unique conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, which are not generally applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district.
Disagree.
I'll agree with that. Mark, you disagree? Who agrees?
Yep.
Aaron?
I disagree.
I disagree.
Bonnie?
Number 1, this is for the roof
This is for the
height. number
height.
1,
This is
right?
for the height.
Yeah. I disagree, number 1.
Kyle? Did we lose Kyle?
Sorry, it was on mute on my phone. Disagree.
I'm missing one. Who am I missing?
Me, Kathy.
Oh, Kathy, what do you think?
I disagree.
Disagree? Okay, and why?
Because I think there isn't some other houses are meeting that height restriction.
Okay. So other homes in the neighborhood, does anybody have anything else to add? Okay. Number 2, literal interpretation of the provision of the zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the same zoning terms, and the variance is the minimum necessary.
Disagree.
Disagree.
Anybody agree?
Disagree.
Agree.
I heard an agree. Who was that? Is that Kyle?
No, I was disagree.
Somebody said agree. Who was that? Maybe I.
That was me.
Okay, so we have 6 disagrees on that. Agree or disagree, the special condition and circumstances do not result from the acts of the applicant. They are not self-created. I think we can all disagree there, correct?
Yep.
They're obviously self-created. They're coming to us for this. The granting of the variance will be the harmony with the general purpose and intent of this ordinance.
Disagree.
Disagree.
I think we can all disagree with that, correct?
Agree.
Yep.
5, the variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the general welfare.
Disagree.
I disagree.
Disagree.
Why are we disagreeing?
Neighbor.
Neighbor complaint.
Can you be a little more specific?
Yeah, you just can't say, you know, what, I mean, is it neighborhood? I mean, what, you know, we've had other neighbors in the past.
The neighbor specifically said that he was in disagreement with that happening because it would personally affect him.
But, and the spirit of the ordinance is to minimize excessively tall structures, which is why they have the 30-foot minimum. And in new construction, I appreciate the Rafalco's attempts to balance all of the issues they're dealing with, but at the same time, in new construction, you can meet the ordinance at 30 feet rather than 32. I do have a question, though. I do have a question before we continue. Craig or Tim, do you know, they were specific, the Rafalcos were specific about not including the height of the garage because it wasn't technically living space. Did they short themselves by not doing that, or is that the right way to average the height? I want to give them every consideration if they did something that was not necessary yet detrimental.
Well, that would be up to, yeah, that would be up to you guys to interpret if that would be the case. We could have done a per foot averaging. He does a per foot averaging around that large garage at the elevations proposed, and I'm trying to get those, what were they, about 25 feet? Or a little bit less maybe on the garage?
Isn't that a bonus isn't that a bonus room over that?
Well, he's got living space, so the ordinance talks about habitable space or living space, so it's living space above the garage.
Why wasn't that used?
Well, because it skews all that per foot would allow the house to get really tall, you know, the main house. This is unusual. Most houses are box, more or less a box, but this has that really big garage, and every foot of that garage you add to the average lowers the height.
So if they would have used their garage, they would have been under our 30 feet.
That's correct. My interpretation of the ordinance or spirit of the ordinance is that you measure the house at the 4 corners and we get what we get. We've had some tall houses in the past. Mike Powell's done the calculations and it is a per foot calculation, but the Rafalcos agreed that, or tried to meet the spirit of the ordinance by changing the pitch, making it a hip roof, and doing some other things and asking for the 2 feet, rather than going through the interpretation of that additional garage elevation added to their average.
Which potentially could have raised their house even, made their actual house even taller and still stayed within
that's correct.
32 feet.
Right, but if they would have used that average, potentially, then they could use that, not make their house taller, but actually be under our average. So if they would have used that is that correct, Tim?
Yeah, both cases, you could have made the house taller and you could have been compliant. with the ordinance because that per foot average would allow you to be a little taller on the house, but still met the 30 feet.
Well, no, well, Tim, just my question is, well, then obviously based on their plan, they fit within their, if we use this, which is obviously you just said is living space, why is the village, why didn't we use that and say, well, no, this space can be used, and then we wouldn't be hearing this. And now, obviously, if they went much taller, then it'd be a different story, but I guess, did they understand that?
It's a matter of interpretation, and that's my interpretation would be that if everybody added a big long garage in front, then the houses would get taller, and that's not really the spirit of our ordinance. So it would be an interpretation. We'd be here for a different reason tonight.
Right. Well, it just sounds like maybe we need to tighten up this ordinance a little bit.
It's
perhaps
that however it's applied, you know, with Tim doing his calculations, is he's applying it uniformly, you know, to in all cases where he's measuring.
No, I mean, I'm not blaming Tim. I'm just kind of curious of if that is living space, that brings down their average. And yes, they could have made the house taller, but okay. But this is what we have. I mean, we're making a decision based on the information provided. So, okay, so we're at 5 disagrees there. I will change mine to agree because I believe we are not taking into account the existing space over the garage. Does anybody want to change that, or they want to leave it as disagree?
I would change mine.
I'd like to change mine.
Agree for number 5. Agree.
Okay. Aaron, you also?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kyle?
I'm gonna keep disagree on that one.
Okay, so I have a 4-2 in disagreement. I'm sorry, in agreement, excuse me. Number 6, our final one. The spirit of this ordinance shall be observed, public safety secured, and substantial justice done. I will agree with that. Does anybody disagree? I'll take that as a no, so we will move forward. Just to review, since we kind of discussed a few things. Number 1, we have 1 agree, 5 disagree. Number 2, we had 6 disagree. Now, again, does anybody want to change anything based on what Tim just told us? That they're not using the space over the garage. Is any of these questions that change your mind about anything?
Craig, I just have like a general question, and I don't know if it's appropriate at this point, but I guess for them to be sitting there hearing us talk about this, could they just decide, well, at this point, we'd like to consider that living space and take this off the table? Or how, I guess, at what point would that, does that make sense? Like, when would that be appropriate for them to say?
That's something that the village would have to make a decision on. I don't know if that comes back in front of us. I don't know if they can recalculate that. I guess that's a good question that, Tim, can you enlighten us on that?
I think they'd be back before you for an interpretation of the ordinance, because I don't think I'd change my mind.
Okay. So Aaron, to answer your question.
I talked to
Tim,
Mike Powell about it. I talked to Mike Powell about it, and Mike said that try it this way first, and then if they want an interpretation of the ordinance, go for an interpretation. But he thought what the Rafalcos were proposing with the corners of that garage at the house was how we would measure it.
Okay. To me, it just sounds like there's some ambiguity there. And again, I know, Tim, you can only go by what you're given in your book. It just sounds like maybe planning might need to look at this, and maybe we need to tighten a few things up so we don't have that ambiguity again. Doesn't help us in this situation, but to me, it just sounds like you could look at it multiple ways, which is obviously not what we want to do. Okay, so I think we're good. So I think number 3, we all disagreed. Number 4, we all disagreed. 5, it was 4 agreed, 2 disagreed, 6, we all agreed. So if was any discussions on that? If not, we'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ZBA case 20-698 specifically 1250-07, with 5 and 6 is the reason.
Yes, 5 and 6 would be the reason. Any, I'll second that motion. Any discussion? Okay, so we're just talking about the 30-foot building height. The other one we've already approved. So I'll take a roll call.
Tupper,
What did she call?
Tupper,
Oh, no.
Ingram,
No.
Moretto,
I would say yes, because of the new information that came forward about the
Duff.
difference.
Oops, I'm sorry.
No.
Laybourne,
Yes.
Minneletti.
Yes. So Leanne, we have 3-3.
So the motion fails.
Okay.
Or it's, yeah, the motion did not pass.
Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Rafalco, so that part of the, what you're asking for did not pass. Your other motion in regards to the, going towards the street did. Obviously give Tim a call, work with him in regards to what can be done. Maybe there's another thing, something else that can be done to make the house compliant. If there's anything else that can be changed, and if it needs to come back in front of us, we can hear another case.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And Tim, I agree with you about interpretation. Sounds like that's the next step.
Yeah, and if it's something that obviously you could give Tim a call during his office hours and discuss interpretation.
Yeah.
Then go from there.
Then ultimately, if if we have an agreement on interpretation and it's within the 30 feet, then there's not an issue, correct?
Correct. That interpretation comes from Tim. So
That I understand.
No, that interpretation is going to come from you.
yes,
Correct.
that is
Your zoning board can look at an ordinance that I interpret one way and tell me I'm doing it wrong. So that would be the next step, I think.
Correct.
okay. Thank you for the information. So Leanne, if they want just so we can give them kind of a roadmap to go, what is their next step if they want to talk about interpretation? Should they call the village?
Yeah, then they'll have to file another appeal because it's a whole separate issue here regarding the interpretation. So unfortunately, yeah, they'll have to go through this again and have the notice and et cetera for the interpretation.
Okay. All right. So Mr. and Mrs. Rafalco, so at that point, you've kind of heard all that, correct?
I did, but the one thing that kind of concerns me when Tim spoke and he mentioned he had a discussion with Mike Powell was that the two front corners of the garage that was a reasonable interpretation and he agreed with it. But the fact is what I put in front of you did not include those numbers. So maybe
Correct.
we would agree on interpretation and I need to, or I'm sorry, maybe Tim and Mike Powell's interpretation is not what I presented to you because I gave you per foot average of the living space only, and I never included the corners, the two points of the corners of the garage at all.
I think I'm mentioning the 2 points at the house, at the garage.
Right.
They're not on my drawing. Like the drawings you and I looked at when we've been talking about this the last month. I'm talking about just after the 32 foot on this side elevation where the garage begins at the porch. I thought those were going to be our 2 points that you added.
Yeah, those were not included in that calculation, no.
What were your front elevation numbers for your height? What 2 points did you measure?
The front is the two forward points of the corner of the home. Actually, just the height. I don't know if you guys have the drawings there in front of you, correct? I can share my screen if that helps.
Is it this one? Is that it?
Yes, and then the one I think Tim is speaking of is what they call a plan view calculation, where it just has points of the like 6 to 8 key points on the home. I have it that I can share my screen and show you.
Are you talking about the cross section?
Well, the cross section is definitely what I submitted to you. Yeah, the cross section. If you see the was it?
Yeah, the first distance I have is 32, and then it ranges in the 32s. And then the bottom, the back end of the house, it drops to 18, which of course drops your average. But
Yeah.
doesn't drop it enough. Now, yes, I could see if it with this dotted line that's across your garage, if you use that, I don't know what that is, but that's obviously smaller than 32.
Right. And then also, if you look at the lakeside, that number of 35. That's
Yes,
that becomes to me an artificially high number because it goes to the grade of the walkout, not the side elevation.
correct.
So I probably, that's why I said earlier, I think this is a conservative, maybe a penalizing view. So what Tim and I had talked about, because he's right, he's been gracious and spent some time with me, but it was back to interpretation. So I had shared with him a plan view of heights, which was, was too late to get in this package. But his thought was, well, maybe this could make sense. Now I can share this with you on my screen, but I don't know what that helps or if Tim wants to go there.
Well, I haven't the ability to look at what you're showing, so.
Oh, you don't? That's right.
Whatever you're showing, I can't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just on the phone. But unfortunately, we have to just go ahead, Leanne. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, here's what I suggest is that if perhaps you and Tim can meet to after this meeting to verify what, exactly the data that you've given him and what he's looking at and clarify all that. And if his determination as he had made it for this packet is what he thought and is what we've been presented with, then what your next step is, I specifically looked up, the ordinance, and basically the ZBA's role is to hear an appeal from a decision or a determination of the building inspector. So if you're appealing, then if you discuss with Tim separately, can't, come to a meeting of the minds and that what Tim has set forth is what he did, or is what he thinks, but we've got some other reasoning that you want to present to the ZBA, then that's their role. And we'll present that information at a separate meeting where then we can have it all in front of us and what have you. But I don't think at this point, unfortunately, I don't think he doesn't see, and it's a little confusing here. So it could, potentially, I'm not saying you'll have to come back if you talk separately with Tim. But if not, if he's staying with, the information that he was presented and it clarifies, yes, this is what my interpretation was, and that's what was presented to us today, then yes, you will need, and you have a different, you want us to go with your reasoning that, hey, I could use this extra garage stuff, then yeah, bring it back to us. But it's going to have to be in a separate proceeding because there are two different,
Sure, but if he agrees with the interpretation of that other drawing, then we may be okay, but he needs to make that decision.
Yes.
He actually has the opportunity to see it, which I can appreciate he can't see.
Yes.
Asking for that tonight. Okay, that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tim, does that sound correct to you or good to you?
It sounds fine to me.
Okay.
Then thank you. What I show you, Tim, won't be anything different than you saw before. It just, unfortunately, it's not what's in this package. And this package, like I said, probably penalizes me, but
it does. Actually, it does.
I don't want to go into creating drawings for a home and start building and then having an issue. So I'm an engineer. I'm very conservative. I don't like to push specs to the point where it's dangerous. And that's why I felt this was most prudent. Maybe that wasn't the best move, but fair enough.
Well, hopefully
we need to, you know, this is the procedure that needs to go so that everybody is on the same page and the public, you know, if need be, they would be notified and what have you. So.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, guys. Have a great night. Appreciate it. So yeah, get with Tim and, you know, we'll go from there. Okay, so number 7, new business, there is none. 8, Mark, anything from council?
Not really. Again, budget time. So that's going through. I believe they finished up the power washing and sealing of the walkway on Benstein. I know there was a few boards that needed to be replaced, and the DPW is working on that.
5 as of tonight.
Okay.
Now,
Other
the
than
bridge
that-
looks exactly the same. Did they put anything even on this bridge?
They did. Unfortunately, because it's over water, it's very restrictive in terms of what they can use nowadays.
Sure.
It's not necessarily the most aggressive preservative chemicals like they used to use. But my understanding is it has been sealed with something. Other than that, that's really what I know. About it.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything else to add? Tim, do we have any cases for next month that you're aware of?
Probably, I've been denying a lot, so I'm guessing there's something.
Making friends everywhere, aren't you? Thank you. We appreciate that. All right, so we'll wait and see that. My guess would be is we're probably going to have more of these Zoom meetings, the way the world is going. So please be prepared in August, September, October, that we're probably going to continue this. I would more than likely guess probably through the entire rest of the year. You know, things could change, but I mean, we all pretty much know what's happening, so I can't imagine we're going to get together. But at this point, I don't think it's been decided yet for August. So we'll keep everybody posted of what the village decides, whether it's a Zoom meeting or in person. My guess would be a Zoom, but we'll see what happens. Mark, are you guys having Zoom or are you face-to-face?
I don't know yet. I'm assuming it's going to be a Zoom, but they always say that it's an option. So.
Have you had any face-to-face since this has gone on?
We did. We had one face-to-face work session, and then some other stuff happened, and they said no more. So that's kind of where it's at.
Was that early on in the process, or was this recent?
That was a month or so ago, right after.
Oh,
we
okay.
went
So, all right. So things started to get better, and now they're worse. So, okay. Well, I guess, you know, plan for the worst. Plan we're probably going to have another Zoom, and if that changes, we're all going to see each other in person. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good, guys. August 25th. Put it in your calendar, please. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank
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 you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for hosting the meeting. We appreciate it, Rob. Great
My
job.
pleasure. Thank you.
Yes.